OGAccountability.com.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. This is David with OG Accountability. I'm sitting here today once again with Liz Marshall.
Hi.
Liz, thank you so much for being here. It is a monsoon out right now. We are in the rainy season. I thought it was supposed to rain during April to bring the May flowers, but apparently
I think we're getting all that rain this week in 1 week.
it's depressing.
It is depressing.
But what are you going to do?
Sit here and ride it out and talk about how depressing it is and make the best of it, like anything else.
That's when Netflix viewing goes through the roof.
Oh, yeah?
When it rains.
Oh, yeah? I believe that.
Okay, so today we kind of been bouncing back and forth some things to talk about, and it's kind of been a while. I've been traveling, you've been traveling. Dad had a stroke, had a lot going on, but hopefully getting back into the hot seat. And thankfully, we're at the summer moment to where don't have to deal with car rider lines and car rider drop off and school events like that. So getting to a little bit of a normal schedule, but we kind of discussed a little bit what we want to talk about, and we want to talk about joy. And joy is a lot of different things to a lot of different people. What some people find joyful, others not so much, and I think the thing about being happy is you have to put yourself in a place to be happy. I genuinely believe you're just not happy automatically. You have to do what makes you happy. You have to find who you are to be a happy person. And I think probably one of the instances we deal with in depression as people get older is they don't know who they are. They don't know who they are maybe outside of work. Maybe people only have an identity. Work is their identity. And they get outside of work and they're like, well, what do I do now? Some people go to the gym, some people golf, some people plug in, get in different areas. But I think everybody's striving to be happy and to have more joy in their life. And we can prove that from just from watching TV. I mean, think about how many antidepressant commercials come on TV all day long. During the Super Bowl, they had antidepressant ads. During primetime TV, during news channels. And what that's really saying is, hey, are you not happy? Well, we have something that can chemically try to make you happy. And people are so quick, and I've been guilty of it in times past, that we're so quick, we want a quick fix that we just run to the doctor and will give me a pill. And that pill's not really making you happy.
No, it's not.
It's not. And
No, it's tricking your brain into believing that you're happy while you suppress all the things that are really wrong and just exacerbate the problem enormously, which I'll hold off on the rant about Big Pharma doing that to us on purpose. However, it's not a solution.
And I do believe in medications. I do believe there's things to help people.
For sure.
I have a friend that she lost her husband, and I mean, she just struggled and she got on antidepressants, and it tremendously helped her out, but she didn't stay on it long term. It was just to help her get through a season. And that's with anything. Supplements, your body can use things as a tool, but it's when you become dependent on that. That's just as bad as being dependent on alcohol or drugs or.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that could apply to, I think. It's just when everybody stumbles in life. We all have peaks and valleys, and that's normal. Everybody goes through that, no matter how, no matter who you are. But
some of us more than others.
Yeah, likewise. But well, I don't even know, and I don't even know if it's a competition. I think that different things are devastating for different reasons to different people.
That's true.
Like think about, if you had to do. I know somebody who, has a sibling who's like profoundly developmentally disabled. And that's something I'll never understand. But she's a great person, and you can see how that has deepened her and like been a part of her journey for a reason. Like, anyway, but how did I get on that tangent? I don't even remember.
Who knows where thoughts come from?
Yeah.
They just appear. By
Well,
the way, if anybody can tell me what movie that quote was just from, I'll send you an air high five. Who knows where thoughts come from? They just appear.
I don't even know what movie that's from.
It's from our heyday. It's, but
Like the good movies.
the good movies, yeah. But speaking of the good movies, like I can watch a movie from my childhood and it makes me happy. I get that nostalgic feeling, and we all want to do things that make us happy, but I think there's a balance. Um, Nobody can live on cloud nine all the time.
We're not supposed to.
We're not
Like,
supposed to.
well, and that's, that is something that kind of that's a theme that's woven itself throughout every enduring spiritual school of thought that there is. Christianity, all the Abrahamic religions, Buddhism, all of them really, is this idea that happiness and suffering, they both have a purpose, because it's true. Like, every culture has seen this. You just have to, and they all have different disciplines about how to deal with that and move forward in life through everything. Like, I think the Buddhists say that suffering is caused by attachment, and they're right in a lot of ways. Like, don't get attached to things, good and bad. Let it pass, let it come, let it go, and
Yeah.
that's true. But Christians have a different way of looking at it as well. And the whole reap what you sow thing. But it's, yeah, I don't know. It's you have to let everything happen to you and learn from it. Like, nobody wants to go through discomfort. Like, it's human to want to avoid discomfort and suffering, but it's there for a purpose. And if you learn to attach purpose to your suffering, that's how you grow and get better. It's when you become bitter and just rely on crutches that you atrophy and become bitter.
If you're not careful, your joy can come out of the complaining. You only
Yes.
feel relevant when you're complaining about something.
Yes.
And I've been around people that will literally, they are a vacuum when they walk into a room. They suck every bit of joy out of a room they walk into. And you'd almost just get to where you can't be around them because everything is negative. You cannot say one thing without them having a negative remark.
I know.
And
Misery loves company.
misery loves company. And I think we're all pushing towards a place, but we have to have, I think in all areas of life, politically, spiritually, romantically, health wise, you have to be a balanced individual. You can't be happy all the time, but it's those valleys, it's the bad times that make the good times more joyful.
Exactly. That's been the thing that I've had to learn through, dealing with addiction in my life. I've been sober for 12 years, thank God. But just dealing with how to, one of the things that you learn when you come out of that is life on life's terms. You deal with life on life's terms, and that's the ups, the downs, the everything that happened to everybody. And you just, I've come to the conclusion that the solution is allowing yourself to feel, which is very difficult for most people. That's why they use drugs. That's why they use alcohol. That's why they have all these other addictions. That's why they retreat into Netflix. That's why nobody wants to be bored or still or silent anymore. Because feeling, especially if you're a sensitive person, I'm a very sensitive person, which is a blessing and a curse, because I feel joy and love and all these things that are wonderful very deeply. But I also hurt very deeply, and I get very angry. So all these things are like amplified. But the best thing you can do is be brave and just forge into it and allow yourself to be shaped and molded and humbled by your humanness, I think, is really the thing. And people avoid that.
And you hit on addiction a little bit. It's been about 2 weeks now. I listened to a guy and his wife give their testimony on overcoming drugs and addiction and the things they battled. And it was so amazing to listen from a different standpoint and a viewpoint from a different form of addiction than what maybe most people are used to. But one thing he was talking about is taking it a day at a time. And he echoed something so well that I think Joe actually talked about. He said, the problem with addiction is when you are coming out of that state of dependency, you do not want to be in those uncomfortable situations. And that's what keeps most people using, because they start facing those things without the drug. And they're
Right.
like, oh wait, I don't like the way this feels. And the process, the healing process, I heard it said so good. When we think about healing and you look at the Bible, different things like that, miracles happen instantaneously. God spoke and Lazarus came forth. God spoke, the earth was created. He spit into the mud. Those were miracles. But healing's a process. Healing doesn't happen that way. It's just like my daughter right now. She had another motorcycle wreck.
Saw that.
And, you know, And I talked to her mom, and we were kind of talking back and forth, laughing a little bit, and we're like, well, maybe she needs to wear her body gear because we got her body gear. I said, but she's learning a valuable lesson. I don't want her hurt, but that's the way we learned growing up.
It is so difficult to accept this, but it's the truth no matter what you're dealing with. Um, like experience is really the only way to learn.
That's the
And
only
and
way.
I say this as somebody who loves to read. I love to read. I love to learn. I have nothing against book knowledge. It's not that. Like that's a component to learning, but you do not deeply understand anything until you've experienced it, period. And that means allowing your children to like not suffer, but just did you die? Like and you know, and there's levels to that obviously, but
There's balance.
there's
Absolutely.
balance, right?
Absolutely. You don't want to just throw them to the wind, but also you can't be there to wipe their nose every 5 seconds.
You are doing them a massive disservice if you send them out into the world without a certain level of understanding about how things work.
So I was in a setting, they're probably going to see this, and we were with some people, and there was a person there, and they had a child with them. I'm trying to do this as politically correct as possible, which is odd for me. Um, and this kid would not listen. I mean, and causing a scene. Well, they meander over to me, and they keep putting their hand and touching my beard, and I'm like, hey, cut it out. So I'm looking at the parent, and nothing said. Finally, I go, quit. Well, then the parent's like, oh my God, don't talk to my kid that way. And I said, believe it or not, it's not going to ruin your kid's life that somebody's holding them accountable. You need to let your kid be corrected, but you should be doing the one that's correcting them.
I did that on a plane one time, and I don't know if it's because I'm a woman or a nice person or what, and I felt bad, but not for long. I did that on a plane one time. There was a child behind me who look, I get it. Kids are kids. I really have a lot of grace and patience with kids on planes and stuff because they're kids, and we were all little ones, and they only have so much. And you know, this kid was probably 10 or 12 years old,
Oh, wow.
kicking my seat, like not just kicking it, like really kicking it, like what in the hell are you doing back there? Like, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna be patient. He'll get tired. This went on for at least 2 hours. This was like a flight from Houston to Boston, like not a short flight. And I had finally, I don't know if it was my day, I don't know, but I had finally had enough because his mother was sitting there right next to him. And it's like, finally just turned around and locked eyes with this kid like hard and was like, stop kicking my seat. And just turned around and he stopped. They were silent the rest of the flight, thank goodness. And I don't want to have to do that. No one does. But I'm like you. I'm sort of the belief that it's balance. Like we owe other people grace and mercy and understanding and forgiveness and all of that, but you also have a responsibility to conduct yourself a certain way in public. And if you don't, then don't make me act like this because I will.
And when we've been talking about joy and happiness, one of the things about growing up is what I get corrected in today can bring me joy and pleasure later on in life because I learned to be respectful. And there's been situations I've been in where people are like, man, you were very respectful. Now, flip of the coin, I've also been in situations because I have a very long fuse, a very hard switch to flip. But when you flip it, there's no going back.
Right. Me too.
There's no apologizing. No. I'm not going to get physical, but well, unless I have to. But once that switch goes off, there is no going back. So, in dealing with things that sometimes we look at and that they're going to be difficult. When you get through the difficult things, when you get past just surviving, and I think a lot of people are in that mode right now.
Yes.
They're just surviving.
I was in that mode for most of my life until very recently, so I understand it well.
And
Like the blind spots, especially.
and I'm bad about, like, I've been making myself go do certain things I don't want to do, but I've been making myself do them because I can be a loner.
Me too. It's
I've
my
got
worst fault.
I've got no problem with doing what I got to do and coming home, and I'll be social, but when I come home, I can take my phone, I can go set it on the counter and not talk to anybody and just get lost in music, get lost in reading. Speaking of reading, Peyton and I just started reading The Diary of Anne Frank.
It's a great book.
It's a great. So we sit every
Read
night.
Viktor Frankl next. Man's Search for Meaning.
That's what I'll. So we sit there at night and I make her read it. she reads it out loud,
That's great.
and we're going like we do like 10 pages at a time. And but see, that brings me joy. I've read books with her, but like I told her, it's like, babe, I want you to read things that really happen, you know. And nonfiction's great. I mean, fiction's great, but you need some nonfiction in your life.
I really don't read fiction.
I don't either.
I it's not a waste of time, but that's how my subconscious feels about it. This is a waste of time, unless it's some sort of a classic that, like, uses a certain technique with the creative. Like, I'll read stuff for that purposes. I like poetry. I like William Blake and some of the old poets and stuff like that. They're great, but like, I feel like it's a waste of time to read things that are not nonfiction. I want to learn about history and
I want
philosophy and law and
absolutely.
self development.
And that brings me joy. I like learning, even if it's useless information. I just like to learn things
But don't you agree then that experience trumps books all day?
all day,
All day.
every day. I remember years and years ago when I went to work for a company, and we were union, and we would get blueprints that would come in from the engineers, and then we'd go to the job site and we'd sit down for the fire safety setups, and we'd be like, this will not work. But some guy who got out of school, who was an engineer, and thank God for people who do things like that, but he never once set foot in that scenario. He's never been in. So they're just writing stuff sometimes they have no clue about. And by the time you get it, you got to go, hey, look, you ordered all this parts and piping and different things. It's not going to work. Well, yeah, it is. It's on the paper. It doesn't work that way. You need to be here to see the real world application.
Yeah, that's what people in the university ivory towers don't understand. It's not saying you're not smart. You clearly are, but unless you go out into the world every once in a while, you lose perspective for how the world actually works. And I think that's become a massive problem in our leadership class across the board.
If we get stuck in the and we were talking about balance when we're talking a little bit about joy. If you just get stuck in certain phases and it's all about, well, we're seeing it with the younger generation now. Their generation, 15 and unders, entertain me all the time.
They grew up with screens.
Some kids can't even get out of the car and walk to the front door without a screen in front of them.
I think their minds have been intentionally hacked with those screens.
Well,
We didn't grow up with those.
we didn't grow up with those, and I'm glad we didn't.
Me too.
I liked the more simple time. I liked being out playing.
Some of my most some of the greatest, most warm and fuzzy memories I have were me and my brother playing in the creek all day, smelling like crap, all muddy, drinking out of the garden hose, because we couldn't come inside. Mom didn't want us in the house, and we weren't going to go in the house, and it was hot outside.
And why did that change? Like my mom would come and be like, "Y'all boys go outside, go." Now you do that, and some parents are like, "Oh, don't
Oh,
do that
I don't.
to
I
them."
because they might scrape their knee, and God
Yeah.
forbid. Yeah, and we would drink out of the hose and wash off the creek from the hose and go rollerblade until it was like we couldn't see anymore and had to go inside. And then we would eat and pass out. It was the greatest thing ever.
We'd have Fight Club.
Yeah.
We'd be like
We had
five,
Fight
6,
Club in
7,
the car, me and my brother.
7 years old. We'd be out there duking it out in the woods.
Ah,
Yeah, it was fun stuff. We built forts.
it was so much. We would build forts too. It was so much fun. That was kind of the benefit of growing up with a brother in Texas is
And then
forts and camping and all the boy stuff was fun.
my father, we've been talking quite a bit. And the other day he was talking, and he said, growing up in the 50s and 60s, he said, we would wake up in the morning, and if we walked to school or walked home, at 8 years old, would take his 20 gauge shotgun, pack a sack lunch, and take off in the morning and not come back. He said, we weren't, and granted, things did happen, but he said, we weren't worried about rapists. We weren't worried about child predators. He said, we didn't have that kind. He said, yeah, it happened, and you may have heard about it once in a blue moon. He said, but it was such a different time.
Well, I think part of the reason the time has changed is because what you were talking about, these fake happiness things that people chase. And especially the pills. I mean, I don't have proof of this, but I'm sort of starting to come to because a lot of these mass shooters, are kids that are troubled and on these
They're on medications.
I think the fact that we have gotten away from searching for real happiness, and that comes through nature, that comes through feeling, that comes through connecting with yourself and God and the world, not through screens and not through pharma and not through all this other stuff. But we've gotten so far away from that. And I mean, that's one of the reasons, like, I'm such a gym person and started coaching and stuff. I hope for this coaching thing that I have going on to blossom into more of a take yourself back, like mentally, physically, chemically, the whole thing. Like, um, it's we'll see, but
People, anybody listening, and I think, uh, you're going to have some people who get angry at this comment and join the club. But like depression, we all go through times of depression.
it's normal to a
It's
certain
normal.
extent.
It's normal to go through, but it's just like with alcohol, drugs, pharma, different things like that. Once we start going through oh, nope, I don't want to feel this way. So here, let me have a couple drinks. Let me, you know, do whatever I got to do to get out of this mindset. No, you need to be in that mindset for a while. You need to go through times where, it's dreary and gray and it's raining, because when the sun comes out, you're like, oh my God, the sun's shining. It's beautiful. It puts you in a position that with every emotion you have, if you start leaning towards one emotion and you find ways to negate and skip that other part, there's a part of you that's not whole and balanced. You're
Right.
just chasing that next good feeling.
You need to learn balance, like you've been saying this whole episode, like balance and learning to sit with the good and the bad. The good's wonderful. We all want the good, but you have to hack like the lower parts of your humanness and like
Yes, you do.
teach yourself how to sit with discomfort, to sit with stillness and silence and uncertainty and all of these other things that no one wants to feel. But like that's what spiritual masters of all sorts of different disciplines have been doing for thousands of years, is trying to harmonize this necessity that we have to experience the good and the bad.
Yeah. Well, the good and the bad, you can't have one without the other.
No, it's yin and yang and light and dark and again, all of these spiritual concepts that people have been elevating for since the dawn of time.
And I've gotten to the place to where I am not going to put myself or allow myself to be put in situations. Not that I don't have to say jeopardize my integrity, because that's a given, but even that, I'm not going to subject my happiness to certain situations, because I've been through some dark times. I like my peace.
Me too.
I and I don't have to deal. I see people who are caught up in strife and drama and trauma all the time. It's constantly fight, turmoil, 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 just nonstop. And it's like, you don't have any joy in your life.
And I've learned, you're right. I totally agree with you. And I avoid that too because I like peace also, which is why I spend all my time alone as well. But I also have learned to have massive like empathy for those people because
Yeah.
I guess I was sort of there for a while. They do that because it's what they know. It's what, even if your nervous system is accustomed to chaos and suffering, if that's what your nervous system knows, it's what it seeks out. It's a trauma response.
It is. Yeah,
So
you're right about that.
with self-reflection and introspection and work, people can overcome that. I did, they can for sure, but a
Some
lot of
people
people don't.
are raised in constant turmoil.
And that's what their nervous system seeks out. Like people who maybe they're good people, but they always end up in these terrible relationships with these awful people. A lot of that goes back to like seeking out what your nervous system is familiar with.
If you recognize a pattern, or you recognize, boy, this is something that has been with me my whole life, I think it's beneficial, very beneficial, to take time to find out why.
Yeah.
Find out why you are the way you are.
And it goes with and you undertake that journey with a commitment not to judge yourself, just to
Yeah.
observe yourself. You're human. You're allowed to for the most part, people do the very best they can with the consciousness level that they have. Uh, and so you don't judge yourself, but you observe yourself and you practice honesty and you see and you give yourself your, credit for your strengths as well. Everyone has them.
I've heard people say some people are afraid to be happy because they're like, every time I'm happy, something bad happens.
That might be true in your experience, but it's deeper than that and you can correct it. Like that's, introspection and like honesty and a willingness to feel it's the best thing you can do for yourself. It just requires conscious action and it's choosing happiness, and it's choosing happiness through work and delayed gratification, which is something that we're not taught anymore.
None of us are taught that.
I'm glad I was taught it. I'm not gonna say none of us, but They
Well,
don't teach these kids that in the schools or in the media or anywhere else that they get information these days.
I was just talking to a friend of mine, and they were doing some homework with their kid, and the class is called financial literacy. And I'm like, that's weird. So I Googled it, and I said, well, they don't offer that at our school. Well, come to find out, this teacher at their school started a financial literacy class and has so many kids wanting to get in this class, but it's teaching them about being smart financially, which we don't get taught. And
For a reason.
for a reason,
I'll spare the lecture.
I tell you what, if